If you were to tell a Geometry Dash player 10 years ago that this would be the hardest level in the game, they probably wouldn't believe you. So how did this game go from this to something that feels almost impossible? Today, we're going over the levels throughout the years that reshaped what was possible and forever changed the demon list. Believe it or not, what is now considered one of the easier extreme demons, Cataclysm and Bloodbath were once the hardest levels the game had to offer. Back in 2015, even though Ice Carbon Diablo X was the blueprint top 1 and once was considered an extreme demon, these two levels became the true peak of difficulty. Cataclysm, created by G-Boy, is widely known as the first true extreme demon. It was far harder than ICDX and was initially considered humanly impossible. And after draining over 80,000 attempts, G-Boy would hack verify it. It wouldn't be until Colombian player Giron legitimately beat the level, followed later by Sandstorm and eventually Riot, who was considered the best player at the time.
Oh my god.
Riot wouldn't stop there. He would go on to verify another level that changed the game's difficulty for the years to come.
Oh my god.
Bloodbath was verified and published by Riot a few months after he beat Cataclysm, and it was a massive step up. It pushed the limits of what was possible and remained the hardest demon for over a year, not getting its first victor until 2016.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! It's over! It's over! Get wrecked, Serve! Get freaking served!
Today, Bloodbath stands as the most popular extreme demon ever, and one of the most influential levels in this game's history. For the first time, the demon list had a massive difficulty jump at the top, and nothing else even came close. So what was the next level that truly pushed things even further? Before answering that, we need to briefly look at some of the notorious top 1s and the impact they made on the list. The RGB trilogy that consisted of Yatagarasu, Erebus, and Sonic Wave dominated 2017 for a reason. Yatagarasu stood out for its length and difficulty compared to its competitor at the time, Artificial Ascent. Erebus, despite being only a minute long, arguably had the hardest gameplay of the three due to its extreme timings, and of course Sonic Wave, which was infamous for its absurd wave difficulty, remaining the hardest 9 circles level and a clear top 1. These levels were simply in a league above the rest of the top 10 at the time, but were they as impactful as the levels down the line? Bloodlust, a super buff Bloodbath remake with harder gameplay and a full extension, definitely pushed the limits, being top 1 for a year. But if you guys remember, it was quickly outclassed by the top players, with Skullo beating it in around 13,000 attempts.
5,000 there, so that's like 8,000, and then there's like 100. Okay, so that was like 8,700 something. I don't know.
And Sunix in allegedly 10,000. On top of this, Crimson Planet would be verified only a few months later, a level that's much harder even to this day, only getting rated a year later. So while influential, Bloodlust didn't really break the demon list. It just proved that top players were starting to catch up. Well, what about Zodiac? An XL top 1 hosted by Bionox and featured gameplay far harder than that of Bloodlust and Crimson Planet, along with an insanely chokeable ending. After multiple verifiers throughout 2018, Zodiac was hack verified by Xander in January of 2019. He wouldn't confess until June of that year, after Technical had already beaten the level to claim first victor.
I I beat it! Oh my god! Oh my god, I beat Zodiac! Holy crap! No way! No way! No way!
This made him the true verifier. Zodiac stayed top 1 for about 11 months, and alongside Crimson Planet, marked a major step up in difficulty. With multiple hack verifications, re-evaluations, and close competitors, Zodiac showed how unstable the top of the demon list had become. But at the start of 2020, 2 levels would completely outclass both. Tartarus and the Golden dominated all of 2020 and most of 2021, constantly swapping between the number 1 and 2 spot. People just couldn't judge which one was harder, and it's a debate that still exists today. Tartarus, formerly known as Silent Akbar, was hosted by Riot and verified by Dolphy in 61,000 attempts. Published in January of 2020, it was far ahead of its time and marked the start of a new difficulty era. On the other hand, the Golden, verified by Nswish, the best player at the time, in around 52,000 attempts, became infamous for its brutal wave sections, dark atmosphere, and low visibility, a style many weren't used to. Together, they didn't just raise difficulty, but they also redefined what a top 1 was expected to look like. These 2 levels didn't just define an era, but they also started an entire series that would later take over the demon list once again. But before we talk about that, 2 levels pushed the difficulty to a point that only a tiny percentage of players can beat it to this day. Firework and Slaughterhouse dominated the end of 2021 and remain incredibly difficult even today. Firework was the first level to truly surpass Tartarus, and even if its legitimate range should have been longer, compared to Tartarus and the Golden, its gaps and timings were on a completely different level. And then came Slaughterhouse, shorter but iconic for its absurdly precise wave gameplay, especially its most notorious part, River. It clearly showed just how far ahead a top 1 could be from the rest of the top 10, a gap the demon list struggled to justify. For months, several levels challenged its position at the top, showing that the gap it created was finally getting overshadowed. That was until another Riot hosted level would take over completely. Acheron, verified by Zoink in August of 2022, became the second level in Riot's inevitable top 1 trilogy. Zoink verified a significantly harder version, allowing Acheron to completely dominate through most of 2023, and just like Tartarus, came another kryptonite. Avernus, part of the Golden series, became its main competitor. Despite heavy backlash, largely due to its fixed hitboxes, it would eventually overtake Acheron for some time, spending 10 months without a single first victor. Today though, the level is far more respected, with recent victors even calling it enjoyable. Before the final level, we need to talk about 2 levels so intimidating that no one attempted them for over a year. Nullscapes by Kiba is a timing-based robot level with randomly swapped orbs and brutal triple clicks, similar to its predecessor, Shardscapes. Its first half is so difficult compared to the rest that most progress attempts stalled early. It wouldn't be until Spooked secretly progressed the level and eventually beat it after 8 months and 250,000 attempts. On the other hand, a month later, Fire followed with 116,000 attempts, which is still an enormous number, but compared to the verifier Zoink, who would take about 90k attempts, it was fairly low for its difficulty. Nullscapes would peak at number 2, surpassing both Avernus and Acheron, only falling short to Tidal Wave, and remains top 5 even to this day. Bubawamba, on the other hand, is the hardest memory-based extreme ever made. The level features completely blind gameplay, requiring pure memorization, and ends with a puzzle that determines whether you beat the level or die. When the level was first verified by East Shark, it would place at number 19th. though over the next few months it would move up multiple different times, eventually peaking at number 3, falling right behind Nullscapes. Nobody would even attempt First Victor for well over a year. It wouldn't be until Korean player Agonum would eventually get First Victor on the level after 92,000 attempts, and as his 32nd extreme only. This also followed by W Popoff beating the level a month later. Today, the level remains in the top 6 and will always be remembered as a level that nearly everyone feared. But with that out of the way, it's time for the final level, which as of right now has pushed the demon list the farthest. Tidal Wave, created by Onilink, is one of the most well-known hardest demons ever, rivaling Bloodbath in popularity. From February 2024 to June 2025, it remained top 1, surpassing Tartarus as the longest reigning top 1 in history. It also holds the record for the most frame perfects in a rated level. Despite being beaten by the big 3 fairly quickly, it would remain unbeaten for over a year, showing the massive skill gap at the top. Tidal Wave became the go-to level for showing non-GD players just how hard the game could get, and even today, as the 4th hardest level, its reign won't be forgotten, with the levels above it nowadays being nearly impossible to the average player. From Bloodbath being the first to really push the boundaries of what was possible, to Bubawamba's underestimated difficulty, each one pushed the difficulty ceiling so far that the demon list now remains harder than it's ever been.
2 top 1s in one day, bro.